When you look at what you guys did last time against Atlanta, I'd say it's something of a struggle, but you got the own goal, managed to get the second one to kind of put them away. What can you learn from that one to improve your performance for tomorrow evening's game?
Well, I've probably said this 100 times now throughout the season. These younger groups, the reserve groups, developmental groups, you normally find that towards the end of the season there's a lot more consistency in their play. There's certainly a better appreciation to what the league's about, because the majority of them, their game's growing. They've seen and felt some of the difficulties within this Eastern Conference. Certainly a competitive league, and I think those players physically grow into that. I mean, the other real big difference, certainly with this Atlanta team, will be who would they play. I mean, they've got a playoff game, obviously, with the first team, 1 or 2 suspensions. So trying to work out who's in that team is never easy. And that can often be the difference between, okay, what system are you playing? I know the last 7 games they've had a great time in that 3-4-3 shape. Do the omissions mean that he changes shape? Certainly he'll be in there, and what sort of experience will they have could well also be a difference for some of those younger players to lean on.
You mentioned that 3-4-3 shape. Obviously, when we've talked about Red Bull 2, for example, they do exactly what the first team does, which has been the same for 6 or 7 years, however long it's been. Do you see that same sort of thing with Atlanta, where they want to kind of replicate what the first team does?
For sure. I mean, I don't think any of those teams are too far away from what the first team are trying to achieve. But again, dependent on the type of player in there, those younger players who are trying to find their way, as we saw with the Bethlehem side early on in the year, they played at Diamond, they play at the main stadium. Those younger players are finding it a hell of a lot more difficult to understand and carry out the game plan, in the same sort of way that the first team do, because you're looking at a completely different type of player. So, this group has certainly been on a really good run. I'm sure there's a lot of confidence, whoever plays. The changes will make a big difference for them, whoever they are. But dependent on who they are, will be dependent on, what they look like, and maybe how they can, what sort of challenge they offer.
Matt, in this situation, he's constantly trying to fend off a lot of the accolades and a lot of the individual attention that he's getting, certainly because of his statistics and goal, leading the league and tied in first in another. Can you talk about his mentality and how he's possibly, or if not, trying to exert that upon the rest of his teammates and trying to keep the collective goals inside? Or do you think that this is something that he is using as motivation to continue his performance and goal?
Well, knowing Matt as well as I do, he is a very humble guy, and I would think whenever he's interviewed, he's giving the guys in front of him as much praise as maybe you guys are of him, and he appreciates exactly what's going on in that back line and the work that the outfield players are putting in, because when all said and done, Matt certainly shows all of the qualities and credentials to be Golden Glove winner, but he'll certainly appreciate the work in front of him. When called upon, I think he's been the best goalkeeper in the league. He's shown all of the qualities that I've seen over a number of years when I've been around him. Incredible shot stopper, great presence in goal. He demands an awful lot from the locker room in general, and he maintains and wants excellent standards. For me, it's a top professional. That's the way, if you're going to survive as long as Matt has, they're the sort of levels that you've got to really aspire to, and constantly. So, look, I'm delighted he's here. I'm very, very pleased that he's part of this group and will continue to be into MLS as goalkeeping coach.
Contextually, with his performance, but also with his club's position in the standings and what can potentially be with a positive result against Atlanta and winning the Eastern Conference. Could you say off the pitch, with with the context, is he the epitome of what a vocal leader is?
100%. There have been numerous players in my time in the US and of course in England as well that I've seen the necessity for a big presence and a leader. Matt has taken a slightly different step in the last 2 years in coming over to a coaching role as well. He's done a wonderful job to combine the two. He's maintained a fantastic level in his own game and he's been able to move forward in his coaching world. But the one thing that's remained a constant has been his attitude, his leadership in the locker room in general. And I think a lot of the guys would testify to the fact that it's been great to have him around.
Is there a turning point or is there a pinpoint that you could say, okay, Matt has been a true coach now on top of being a top goalkeeper?
Well, because he's playing at this point, he hasn't actually made the full jump across to being just a coach. Honestly, if you ask Matt, and I have done, I would think he could still do a good job at the next level. Now, whether that's the case or not is yet to be seen. But the reality is, he's been a wonderful goalkeeper, full stop. He's been a great personality. And as we move forward, I'm sure he'll be a very, very good coach as well.
You guys started the year probably below the defensive standard that you like, but especially since Matt has kind of consistently locked down that goalkeeper role, and since the arrival of Jimmy and Forrest, it's kind of been probably even better than it was last year. What do you attribute that to? Is it just kind of that finding that consistency in personnel, or is it something that has kind of come together as a bigger piece to return to being an elite defense?
When the two guys came in, I think we needed a fresh presence, maybe a different approach in that central area. We'd started to lose a little bit of consistency and ground. We were conceding too many goals, full stop. Is the combination of those two guys, Kenny getting fit, the goalkeeper's not rotating. I would imagine all of that coming together has given us a little bit more of a foundation and has certainly seen much better results in terms of goals against. You can also look at the fact that Kenny's played in the centre midfield role in front of that back line. When you've got, I would say in general, a more consistent and a bit more continuity with a group, then those guys are always forming a better relationship. I think full stop, the group works very, very hard. When we don't have the ball, I've seen, far more intensity about their game. And maybe that coincides with getting into that sort of final stretch and seeing what is available to us, which has now become the possibility of being Eastern Conference champions. So that's inspirational as well.
Obviously, you are focused on your result tomorrow night, but pending a good result, are you expecting to maybe get together as a team and watch Sunday afternoon to see if you win that first spot in the East at all?
No. We'll do our job tomorrow. Pittsburgh will go about their business on Sunday. If everything goes our way, then we'll get together beyond that. I just don't think that, given the occasion, the way that the games and the schedule's panned out, for me, it's not an ideal situation. I think every team should be playing at the same time on the same day, but that's not the way it is. So we can only get our job done and then hope that Birmingham do us a favour and get a result at home. I mean, I have to say, dependent on results around the league, Birmingham are a good side. I would think they'll want to keep some momentum if their status as a playoff team remains and they don't have to fight for it. Why would you not want to go into the playoffs being unbeaten in a couple of games and looking confident and feeling good about yourselves? I'm sure they won't want to get beat. So we're hoping that they'll do us a favour, and then beyond that, we'll work out how we'll celebrate that and what that means.